the talk. Oh, there we go. Please put your questions in the chat so that we can answer them at the end. There will be a question and answer period for like the last 10, 15 minutes or so. David, thank you very much for joining us and look forward to your talk.
Okay, great. I'm happy to be here finally, right? And so hopefully nobody has, maybe some people have seen parts of this presentation, but I do hope that everybody will get some value out of this. Carl, I'm going to actually turn off my video. I'm going to stop my video just to preserve a little bit of bandwidth on my end. So let me do that right now. Okay, so speak up if this doesn't look like it's working. So here we have my first PowerPoint slide, and I'm going to actually move on to the next slide. So let's make sure that that works. Okay, can you see this, that I moved along?
Yes, you're good, David.
Okay, all right. So really, just really quickly, what I'm going to do is explain to you who we are at the Census Bureau, the differences between decennial versus ACS, a little bit about how we collect the data, the parameters for finding data. I'm going to give you a demo on the data portal, and also actually not ACS website, but I'm going to actually show you some of the geography things that you can obtain. So meaning GIS files and things like that. So let me just start right into this. There we go. All right, so just so we all know, we're all aware of this, the Census Bureau is not something that's just done once every 10, we don't just work once every 10 years, we're working all the time. So we work on all these different surveys plus more, but these are the surveys we work out of the regional office, meaning the New York office, and we're out there knocking on doors all the time, or visiting hospitals or doctors' offices or people's homes, trying to ingest all this sort of data, raw data, and then we send it off to these other federal agencies. So we're actually a contractor to other federal agencies, and we will send it off to them, the information, and they will put it on their website in their own, as their own statistics as they need to. That said, you know us from the decennial census and this thing at the very bottom, the American Community Survey, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. But let's talk about decennial census. So that's something that's done every 10 years. It is the official count of the population. And we're actually only asking a basic 10 questions. Every housing unit is accounted for. So there's some people ask us for the margin of error in this, or what percentage is missed or whatever, but in our view, nothing is missed. We have accounted for every housing unit. We have sent something to them and they've sent it back, or we've, if they haven't done that, we have visited the housing unit and tried to ascertain whether people live there or not. And we actually, sometimes we'll actually ask neighbors, what's going on with the housing unit. So next slide. The decennial census is one time when we do count homeless population. So we're actually, going overnight to homeless shelters and group quarters, and we're enumerating people at that time. And if we have been alerted where there are homeless encampments, we will visit those encampments and we will count the people there. We also simply just standing on a street corner in a town, if we see homeless people, we can enumerate them right on our phones, or, that was some of the techniques that we used. This was the first time that the census was online, and that sort of really brought an advantage to us. I would say I do have some numbers written down here. I think because of this, within like 2 weeks when we started the census, which was back in the middle of March 2020, within two weeks, 25% of the households in the country had responded to the census online. Okay, and then by the end of August, 75% of the households in the US had responded online or to the census. And then one thing that we did was we would follow up and knock on people's doors, but that was sort of a gentle reminder. And many of the people were still allowed to respond online. So if we got that they responded online before we came back the second time to knock on the door, it was accepted. So all the way to the end, we let people respond online, and it really worked to our advantage during the pandemic. So all the other censuses, including ACS, which we will look into, are based on this 10-year count. It's sort of an inventory once every 10 years, and we just sort of start from there and then go through the next 10 years. You can get that data down to the block level, and I do intend to show you today how to do that on the portal. If you don't know how to do that, but it is a little bit of a challenge, but once you figure it out, there's no turning back on that. So a lot of intense publicity efforts during the census, and that sort of helped things along. A lot of outreach went, as I said, online. So that said, I said people could respond online, but believe it or not, during the pandemic, we had outreach going online. So for example, in my own town, I was on a census committee, and a lot of students from the local university were on there, and they would do what they call tabling events, and they would do it all online. And so many things went online. There's a lot of outreach going online, and so in the end, that seemed to be very advantageous to the Census Bureau, and a more robust response than we could have ever imagined, and sort of diminished the non-response follow-up that we thought we were going to have to do. Once again, this census, many temporary workers out there all the time. They learn the job and they're out there, and then some of them were itching to get out there, and they got pushed back a month or 2 months because of the pandemic. But they finally did get to go out into the field. Many of the trainings, by the way, were in open air classrooms. They were all outside and not inside. Data release. So this is really what I deal with, but because of the pandemic, everything is pushed back. So the PIL, public law data is out there for redistricting right now, but that's sort of just the beginning. And so the data, as far as I know, the main part of the data will come out next year, meaning 2021 or 2022. Probably, I'm guessing in the spring, but don't hold me to it. It could come out a little bit earlier. So everything is pushed back a little bit. The data, the crunching and numbers and everything, everything came into us, 3 or 4 months late, and it just sort of triggered this. There was this domino effect, so it makes everything just a little bit later. So just bear with it. But things are coming out in dribs and drabs, and I think in the end it's pretty good data. So let me just move along. I keep hitting the wrong key on my keyboard here. So American Community Survey is a different thing, but ironically, this is the data that most people seem to be looking for. So they come to us, they think it's the 2020 census data, and they're looking for very specific things, but I have to say, no, you're looking for the wrong thing. You're looking for American Community Survey. So American Community Survey is a parallel sort of survey or census. It is very impartial. It is an address selection. We don't know who lives there. And it is only 1% of the addresses around the US per year, okay? So some areas, though, that are more urban, where we think it is more difficult to count people, the address selection will be actually more robust, and we will select actually more addresses because we know we're not going to get all of them in the end. But anyway, we are out there. Similar to decennial, we send the thing out, we send out an invitation, then we send out the paper form, but we're actually wanting people to do it online. It's just more, the data is pure, it's quicker, it gets to us easier. So really, if you're doing this, try to do it online. So a few things, pandemic, we still did some data collection, but it does mean that the data is coming out late, or some of it will be annulled, or it will be canceled or weakened by that. And so I will get into that in a minute or two. American Community Survey, 72 questions. So a lot of questions. I would say we would be very happy if you would answer most of those questions. Let me just word it that way. Deep characteristics are what we ask. They come out in these different tables: B tables for base, C for collapsed, S for subject, D, P, data profile. A lot of cross tabulating going on. We ask question A, question B, and then we come up with a derivative, which would be C or D, something of that sort. You can get this data down to a tract level with certainty. You can, really pretty much rely on that data. In some instances, you can get data down to a block group level. I I don't always advocate for that, but some people go for that anyway. So just to be aware. This is what the questions look like. We do let people write in what they want to write in. We don't really hold them to a box they have to check off. And we have software that will read the responses. So I just put this in here, letting people know that, as an example, Hispanic is one category, but we don't consider that to be race. So it is a separate item from race. Some people could be Hispanic and African or Black, and some people Hispanic white, or some people Hispanic Chinese. So we let people self-identify. Here's another, these are just about languages. Notice that there's a 14 here, number 14, there's A, B, and C. So there are actually more questions in 72. All right, let me move on with this. These are sort of topics that you can get within there. So notice how much more robust this is than what we would actually get out of a decennial census. Decennial census is going to be more about the hard numbers, you know, how many people live there, their sex, their age. But this is much more encompassing. All right, and so I do want to talk about ACS data thresholds. If you've ever gone looking for data, or you will go looking for data, you need to be aware that the magic number is right here in the middle, 65,000. Okay, so under 65,000, if it's a county or a place or a town in upstate New York, or a zip code, and it's under 65,000 people, or you think it's under 65,000 people, you have to take what we call 5-year data. And that means the data was, we pulled in that data, we surveyed over 5 years. And after the 5th year, we took the average of it and we released it. So we release that data every year in December. And but it is a compendium or an average over the past 5 years. And we have to do that. We don't want to burden the public with too many ACS questionnaires going out to people. And so this is a way to get around that. We just average it out over 5 years. If you are in an area over 65,000 people, you can use you can use 5-year data, and you can also use 1-year data. 1-year data means over 65,000 people, the intake of the sample was large enough that we can release data every year. That data comes out in September. And this year should be the 2020 ACS data that came out. And above 100,000 people, believe it or not, we have something called a PUMA, Public Use Microdata Area. And those are large sort of statistical areas that you can get that encompass areas of more than 100,000 people, but the sample is so large that if you go looking for tables in PUMA, you will get actually more information. Okay, so some information is suppressed at smaller population areas, but if you go looking in a PUMA, for example, you can get the breakout of all these different languages that people speak in that area, and different ethnicities and things like that. So you can get more robust data. Okay, so let's talk about COVID. COVID impacted ACS, and for 6 months there was very little data intake, sort of the flip side of the 2020 census. And I think people got distracted by the 2020 census and filled that up and refused to do the ACS, perhaps. I'm guessing. I don't hold me to that, but so what has happened is the 1-year data, which would have been released in September of this year, they were saying that 6 months of data was not obtained. And so we only got 50% of the data. So they are releasing some ACS data for counties, 1-year data for counties, but not much else than that. The 5-year data, because that's 50% of the data intake is diminished, right, or more or less gone. But for 5-year data, that's a larger intake of data. We are still going to release the data for ACS 2020, the 5-year, but it will be late. And normally we would release the data every December, the 2nd week. I've heard it will be maybe a few weeks or maybe even 2 months late. I'm not quite sure, but it will be late going out there, but it will be there. Okay, so notice that we say down to 4,000 people here. When we get below 4,000 people in an area or a census tract, the margins of error can shoot up quite drastically. So I just do want to bring that to your attention, but that depends on the local population and how much people will answer questions. Oops, wrong way. Go here. Okay, a little geography lesson here, and this this little part of the my PowerPoint is actually from Esri, so I give them credit for designing this. It was not me. So every block in the nation for 10-year census, every block gets a number. They do get renumbered sometimes after or just before every 10-year census, so be aware of that. If you're comparing 2020 to 2010, the block numbers may be different. Blocks nest within block groups. The block groups the numbers may be different too. And then the block groups nest within a census tract. Census tract is a very stable geography. We don't like to change the numbers. We don't like to change the boundaries. And we like to preserve those so that you can go back through time and analyze population. So census tracts nest within a county. They do not necessarily nest within a city or a village. But, 1940 was when we first started going nationwide with census tracts. The Northeast, for example, New York State has town boundaries. And at that time, most of these census tracts were aligned with town boundaries. Sometimes if towns are very underpopulated, it might be two towns together that make up one census tract, but that's pretty rare. So this is kind of a nice thing, in the Northeast, we always feel we're getting shortchanged on things, but I'm in New Jersey, New York, New England. This is one good deal we got from the Census Bureau. The census tracts do tend to nest within towns and townships. So, but not necessarily within cities sometimes, okay? So counties nest within the state within the United States. Over here on the left, if you can see I have a note here in New Jersey, and below it I say in New York and New England. County sub or county subdivision is sort of a little code word or secret word that we use, and it means all your cities and towns. Okay, so if you're looking for your cities and towns, upstate New York, you're going to look for county subdivisions. That does not include villages. Villages are listed under what we call place. Okay. This is just a geographic hierarchy, how we sort of classify things. It's here in the presentation. I guess I would just say, if you're looking for county subdivisions, if you can see my arrow here, this is helping you find your way through the data portal, through data.census.gov. You start out at the nation, you go to state, you go to county, and then county subdivision. If you were looking, for example, block group, you work from nation to state to county to tract to block group. That's how you would look for data. So this sort of shows you how you're going to look for data as you go through data.census.gov. I put this in here. I don't know if anybody needs this, but this is just sort of understanding FIPS codes a little bit. So FIPS codes, first two codes are the states. Let me just do that. There it is right there. The next codes could be either the county code, well, it is a county code. So county codes are only odd numbers or no even numbers. And then the next thing would be tract. Notice this is tract number 1. Think of it as dollars and change, right? So we can subdivide a tract. It could be 102 or 103 or whatever, but in general, this is tract 1. And then we have a block, the block number, which is right here. So it's a 4-digit number. And if you were looking for the block group, it is actually just the first digit of the block, okay, the block code. Now, if you're looking for minor civil divisions or towns in New York State, so you're going to get this 5-digit number that comes right after the county number. And then if you're looking for a place, meaning a village or a city, it will be a 5-digit number that comes right after the state number. So 34 actually is New Jersey. It's not New York State. New York State is 36, by the way. This is what I just say a table looks like, just so that we're aware of that. You get a prefix, you get a suffix, and you get a number in between. The suffix, by the way, if you do see a suffix, it means it's dealing with just one race. Okay, so I'm going to go into data.census.gov very soon. And I do like to point out that when you go there, it's its own portal. It isn't, if you click on the logo up here in the upper left, you won't get back to the Census Bureau's main portal. It just clears everything out and keeps you in data.census.gov. So the URL is just the word data.census.gov, and it will bring you here. And when you get here, very often you say, well, what the heck do I do now? Okay. So the secret is advanced search, and it's just here below. And once you click on advanced search, it starts to let you filter things out. Okay, so you can filter out by topic or geography or year, however you want to do that. And it isn't just the decennial census information or ACS that's in here. We also have other things like survey of economic census and surveys of business and things of that sort. Many things are in here. Most of it goes back to the year 2000. So every year going back to the year 2000, I always say start with a year first that you're looking for when you go through this. So I am going to stop my share. Okay. Actually, are there any questions before I move on?
So yes, there was a question about when will the data be available for calculating weighted voting? Because the county has a board of supervisors.
So I think what they're talking about is the redistricting data, right? And that data is available. I mean, it's a preliminary, so you can get by block. You can get that information if you're constructing your own jurisdiction, if I understand that correctly. So I'll show you how to get that today. So if you want to go in and see the actual count block by block within your jurisdiction, we can look at that. Okay. Is that right? Am I answering that question correctly? I mean, why you wanted it?
Well, they need town and village level data.
Yeah. So yes, it is there. I'll show you how to get that in a minute.
Okay.
Yep.
Another question, you answered what about populations under 4,000 for the American Community Survey? So, and then the other question, Esri provided clean census data for 1990 and 2000, but have retired on. Does the census provide GIS access to the 1990 and 2000 data?
Okay, do they provide what access? GIS?
GIS access, like a clean, like an easy format.
I don't have an easy format. I don't, since we don't do easy format. So I think you can get the GIS data, as I recall. It might be archived somewhere, but maybe we'll look into that in a few minutes and see what we see.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure you can get back to 2000. You might be able to get before. And before then, we were a little bit still creating our GIS, so you might not want that. But the data you should be able to get, or you have to go to the API to get the older data sometimes.
Yeah.
So all right, I'm going to stop my share.
And then one side question as you're switching. The recording will be on the GISSIG website afterwards.
Yeah. That's your question, not my question.
That's my question. That's why I said it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let me just do this really quick. Hold on. I'm just setting up my computer here. All right. And let me see if I can do this. So, share screen here. Share. Okay. Can you see my screen? Explore data?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so let's look into this. I think maybe that we'll look at both ACS and 2020. I think they're both high in everybody's thoughts here. So the first thing I'm going to do is go right here to advanced search to show you how to use this. So I really, really recommend that you select your year first. Okay, so if we come here to 2020, the ACS 2020 data has not been released yet, but the preliminary redistricting data has been released, the hard numbers. So let's just see what happens. We click on 2020, and then when we come to surveys, it sort of knows already. See, it has lightened American Community Survey and everything else, and the system realizes only the decennial census is available for 2020. And all these other things are not available, but this one is redistricting data. Okay, so here it is. We click on that. So we've noticed down here at the bottom, if you can see that, it says 2020 is redistricting data. That's sort of a chip, we call it, or a filter that is there and ready for us to continue. So then you come up here to geography, and you have to kind of let it know what you're looking for. We can do it by tract or block group or block if we want to. So let's do this. Let's go to, I think we will do tract, and we'll just see what we get. Sometimes this thing will blow, I'm blowing its mind, and it says you're putting too much in here. So we come here to New York, and I am going to go to Monroe County. And here it is right here, Monroe County. And I can say all tracks within Monroe County right there. And let's just see if this works. And we will say search. Okay, and then what happens is it knows the 2020 data. Here it is, and it has these tables over here. And let's see if it will open a table. So if I click on race, it might tell me the table's too big. But it doesn't. It gives me the whole table. It gives me every tract in Monroe County, and it's giving me the hard numbers by tract. Okay, so this is not a sample. This is actually people who were visited. And then as you go through, it's giving me more information down here. It's breaking it out. And then what you can do, and this is not just for this data, but for any data you're looking for, ACS, whatever, you can actually click on what's called customize table up here at the upper right. Okay, and then when we do that, it opens the table for us, and we have a few options now. We can download the data right here if you want to do that. And I do believe when you download it, you are going to get like a geo code on the left, and you can, have everything like the state, the county, the tract number that's there, so you can do your match in your GIS. Okay, so you can download it if you want to. You can just bring it right into Excel. If there's only one thing you want, you can highlight it if you want to do that. It's a pretty big table, so you probably don't want to do that. But if you just wanted to highlight something, you can highlight it right here, right click, copy, and then just paste it into an Excel spreadsheet. Or if you're really in a hurry, up here at the top, you can click on your URL, if you can see that, and you can right click on the URL, you can copy it, and you can paste it into an email, and it should open it for you when you come back. Okay, so you can certainly do that. Now, another thing you can do is there is a map here. So there's sort of like, I won't call it a GIS, but it's like a GIS wannabe, right? So you can click on the map right here, and it will take the first variable that was in that, I'll call it spreadsheet and table rather, and it maps that variable for you. So it's telling us up here at the top, it just mapped the total, but you can see where my cursor is up here. And if you wanted to map something else that was in that table, one race alone, population of one race, Black or African American alone, we could do that. So I can click on that, and it will remap it for you. Okay, and so it is sort of a little mini GIS that's in here. If you wanted to embellish on it a little bit, you can come over here to the left. There is a gear right there. You can change the colors if you want to do that. Maybe you want to do this before you pull it into your GIS so that you kind of get an idea how you might want to map something, one variable at least. This is natural breaks. If you don't want natural breaks, you can do quantile, or you can do equal interval. You can change the number of data classes if you want to do that. If you zoom into this, I believe, yes, the I'll call it typography comes up, and you can, or the labeling, you can see what's going on. It is very difficult to see the map, the base map that is beneath this. So that said, I think it will be next month. This portal will be updated a little bit, specifically geography components, and they are putting in a transparency so that you can see the base map underneath. And I think they are making a few improvements on this. But Hopefully you know your area, and you can look at this and you can sort of get an idea. But this is the other thing you can do. You can come up here to the left. You can click on select. If you don't want to go back to your table, you can just sort of click in a tract, and you can get that hard number if you want to. And you say tract number 20 has this many people who report themselves of one race, Black or African American. And one race meaning that maybe we allow people to report themselves as being Black and white if they wanted to go that route. They're welcome to do that. So that's what that means. So if you want to go back to the table, you can click right here on the little table icon. It brings you back to the table. So I'm actually working my way backwards a little bit. I do this sometimes, and then I say, okay, let me go back to all my tables. If you can see up the upper left, and I sort of work my way back. So over here, we have all the different variations on the theme that are offered from that. And I always like to say you're window browsing right now, or you're shopping, and maybe you don't like this window and you just click on this one over here and it will change the table for you, and you can see that information, and you can download that information if you want to. Okay, this all said, this is once again, this is what I selected. Remember, I selected 2020 decennial census and the public information, or I think public law data it's called. So that's how I got here. I just want to show you one other thing now. It might work, it might not work. I'll show you a different way. Customize the table. We went to that map. It mapped the thing for you. But if you kind of want to change your geography, you can actually sometimes, if you can get the thing to work, right up here it says geographies. You can come here and you can say, okay, well, maybe I want to look at this by county or place, but if I can find it, or if you see it, yell, here it is, census block. And if we zoom in, it may map every block. It is starting to map all these blocks. And let me see. Okay, so total. So I haven't really selected anything. You come here, you can say select, and you can say, I want the blocks right there. Okay, and it took that same variable, the total, and it mapped it for me. So that is one way you can do that. If you're just sort of poking around and you want to look at things, you want to add to it. The mapping function actually sometimes can be more robust than the table function itself. Anyway, right here, I'll say one race, and I'll say African American. So it sort of gives you a highlight. And if you say select and you click in a block, it tells you the number of people who identify themselves as Black or African American within that block. So you can actually get quite granular with this if you wanted to. If I click on table, let's see what happens. So this is where I like to see that the map is a little bit better than, so I didn't clear out my table, and I probably should have done that. And so it's still going back to the tracks, but we can do that. We can start all over again if we want to. And I'll just show you really quickly. Here I go, 2020. Okay, what am I looking for? Surveys, we call it. We know it's decennial. So it's always good for you to see me do this twice. You'll remember it better. Geographies, and we're going to say block. This is the problem with this. You can certainly come in here. Then we have to sort of whittle it down. We say New York. We have to say the county. So it's Monroe County. And then we have to know that census tract that we are looking at. Okay, so that is a little bit of a problematic if you don't know the census tract or the blocks within it. I'll say all the blocks, and I say search, and I say one race. Okay, so here it is, everything that was in those tracks, and I say customize the table. Repetitiveness is good. You see how to do this. Map it. Okay, and it's probably good that you see this. So sometimes what happens, our system goes a little bit wonky and it maps you to the middle of the country in Kansas, and you just need to know that Rochester is to the right of Kansas, right? And so let's see if we can find that tract. Here it is. I see it up here. There it is. And so it has mapped all the blocks in there. So the mechanism now knows that we're working on blocks, and you can certainly add to it if you want to. You can say select. You can add to whatever you need to that grouping, and it just adds things like this. And it lets you go in there. You can go in. I don't say this is the easiest way to do this, but you can come in here and you can analyze things if you want to, like that. And it tells you number of people in there. And then up here, remember, you can control it. You can say, this is what I want up here, and you can change the way the map looks. Let's see, white alone. Let's see what happens with that. So it will, whatever you've selected though, that's what's going to be your data set, and that's it's going to compare one to the other, only what you have selected. Okay, let me, I know I'm going quickly. Up here, the upper left, I have this census thing. When I click on it, it cleans everything out. I come back here. I do want to show you ACS. So ACS 2019, I select that. And then maybe geographies, and I will come here and I will say tract again. So similarly, I'm doing the same thing. We come here down here to New York. And I'm sorry, I keep picking Monroe County. All census tracts in Monroe County. So that is now down here as part of what I need. So here we can do a couple of things. We can let it know that we're looking for ACS, or we simply can come up here and look for topics. And so let me look for topics, and I'll just show you, you can actually come up here sometimes and it will, the topics are listed here. So we have health, and we could be looking for health insurance if we wanted to, and we'll find all the tables that we have that have information about health insurance. And so then down here at the lower right, I click on search. And now what it has done, it's found all these tables and is trying to outguess you, trying to say the latest, greatest thing is up here. And this is what is selected characteristics of health insurance coverage in the US, but it's really for all the tracts in Monroe County. And so it is churning, it's coming up, hopefully. Oh, sorry, table's too large. It's not wanting to do that for me. But so you can just download that table. So it's too robust with data, but a little secret that nobody knows is when you click on the mapping function for whatever reason seems to have a lot of power, and it will map everything for you actually in that table. And so here are all the tracts in Monroe County dealing with health. And believe it or not, you can come up here and you can, that's just the estimate of civilian non-institutionalized people, but you can see what all the variables are when you read through this. And if you really wanted to, you could map something in here if you wanted to. So for example, disability. So people, civilian non-institutionalized population with a disability, whatever the disability is. And we do have a lot of information on disabilities. So here, this information is here by census tract. And you can certainly say select, and you can click in the census tract and it will give you numbers if you wanted to go that route. But certainly you go back to the table, which wouldn't load for me, by the way. But I go back to the table and I can download that table if I wanted to. So that was probably maybe I selected a table that was too robust. But generally, you will see the table here. You can download the table, or you can just look through it if you wanted to. Like I said, I do like to back out of things. I keep backing up here to the left. I say tables, and I can look at other tables that are over here, subject tables, a base table. Could maybe it will, that one loaded. So the subject tables are more robust than the base tables. So here's one that loaded. Notice every table has a number. A lot of people, when they find that information, they like to, if that's their favorite table, they tend to write down the numbers. So I'm going to move on a little bit. I know we don't have a lot of time. Let me just pause for 1 minute, see if there's any question, any burning question that's in the chat. If you see anything you want to tell me about.
There were two questions. One was, why do the tables include the 15000 US instead of the item code?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there is a number at the beginning that we call, okay, believe it or not, the geographic code, and it's, I think that's what we call it, and it's letting you know, are you dealing with the whole well, I think the US number is always there, but you will see also a code, a numerical code. In fact, let me go to my filter and show you that number. Let me just hold on. I do want to show you that. It is because you have to have that. So notice up here, show summary, actually summary level code, we call it. And when you do that, here's the numbers over here. For whatever reason, the US gets one because I think we're shooting for an international coding system that's going on. And so the US gets its own number. But these numbers you need to be cognizant of as well over here. It lets you know, are you dealing with county or state or county subdivision? And then you're going to deal with the rest of the things, like, so this is letting you know, for example, state code. It is not the state code, it's the geographic level or the summary level is 40. And then you're going to go looking for the state code. So New York would be 36, and then whatever else you want. So there's like more numbers than I showed you in the initial PowerPoint.
Okay. And the other question is there a way to export or download the maps?
So as far as I know, you can't download those maps, but I'm pretty sure that you can go up and you can click on that URL and you can right click and you can copy and you can paste that URL. And then when you go back in, I'm pretty sure that you're going to go right back into that map and you can use that. So that's kind of a different way you can use it, but I'm sorry right now, unless you're doing a screenshot of it, I don't know of a way that you can download it or print it. So let me just move on a little bit. So speaking of downloading, I'll go to the main census website, census.gov. And when you get here, I do want to bring your attention to not explore data. I will bring your attention to that, but browse by topic. And right here, it says geography. And when you go here, this is our geographic division, and this is where you're going to get your shapefiles. Okay, so we have the tiger line files, and you can download tiger line files if you want to. They are here. There's a web interface and an FTP interface. For those of you who are younger, 30 years ago, people were still trying to put together their base maps, and they're using information from Tiger to put together. We didn't have base maps pre-constructed. And so people would use the Tiger line files to put together that. And some people will still want these. They have a lot more information in them, and they are there for you to help you construct your own maps if you want to. But if you're doing maybe quicker analyses, you may want to go for these cartographic boundary files. They use up less memory, and they're just quicker. And I have found that if you're actually just mapping and trying to map our ACS data, that these boundaries, cartographic boundary files, may be a better way to go for you. I mean, that's typically what I used to use. So let me just go back. So cartographic boundary files, and then some people like the geodatabases, so they are here too. And so you can download those. And I do want to point out a couple of things here. Often it's going to sort of direct you to downloading the whole of the United States. And the idea is that you'll match up your data for just your county or your area, and then you can, parse it out by just what you need. So that is a bit of a exercise to go through, but that's the way the Census Bureau is going with this right now. The other thing I do want to point out, notice whatever you're downloading, your shapefiles or your geographic, geographic areas wouldn't be like that, but the shapefiles, let me go back, and the cartographic boundary files, but specifically shapefiles come out first, then cartographic boundary, then the geodatabase is closer to the end of the year. So how that works is at the beginning of the year, 2021, for example, we put out the new boundaries. And so they are up here for you to download, but there's probably not much data yet. And as the year goes, as we go through the year, the data will be released, and you would have already had the shape files, and you can do the matching if you want to. The geographic databases are sort of predicated on releasing shapefiles and data together. So that would be up there probably closer to the end of the year. And I believe the cartographic boundary files are put up there like midway through the year. But generally, when you see 2021, the data is going to be released by the end of the year. And so it's just meant for you to get the shapefiles at the beginning, but the data won't be ready yet. Okay, so it's very important that you remember that you're maybe downloading the shapefiles, but the data will be released as we go through the year. Okay, any questions about that? Okay.
Nobody posted any.
Okay. All right. So we got 10 minutes, and I really did want to show you something else. So if we're just coming in, let me just go right back here to the main page of Census Bureau. I showed you browse by topic, which is geography. That's where we were just there. But explore data. If you want to get to data.census.gov, it's certainly here. Explore data main. Excuse me, losing my voice. If you wanted, there's something here called Census Academy. If you wanted to go to that place, that's where you can sign up for webinars. There are different sorts of YouTube videos that you can look at that we release all the time. And I think you can sign up with your email, and you'll get like a weekly or a monthly alert when things come out. But I also wanted to point out that over here on the lower left is data tools and apps. And that's a way to get into all sorts of little experimental and ongoing mapping things that we have here that you can look at if you wanted to. And I really did want to bring you down here. Let's see, it might be the second page. So it's page 2. And I did want to show you something called Tiger Web, and I'm sure that many people have heard of this. This is actually going into our website, and right here. So this is actually letting you kind of look to see what is in our database and what's there. You're not going to see individual housing units or addresses, but you're going to see the geographic boundaries of things. And so what I'm going to do is actually go here to Tiger Web, and I want to show you something. If you didn't know this is coming along, here it comes, hopefully. I want to show you the differences between, okay, so I am going to, if I can manage this, let's see, I'm going to show you Census 2020. Okay, so if you can see over here on the left, I'm going to actually zoom in to the Rochester, Northern Finger Lakes area, right? So we're right around here, Monroe County, Wayne County. And then over here on the left, I'm going to click on this, and you can do this too, checkbox, and turn on all the sorts of places. And what happens is when you zoom in, it starts populating that with that information. Okay, so if you look at this, you see all this information, and by the end of this year, when the 2020 data starts coming out and the ACS data, you will be able to get it for these places, right? So there's a secret little key up here, or icon right up here at the upper right here, if you can see it. And when I click on that, it lets me compare an older database to a newer database. Okay, so I'm going to select the vintage ACS 2019. So that's 2 years ago, and this is sort of showing what we used to have. Let me see if I can get that to come up. Uh-oh, that didn't come up. All right, let me see. That didn't work. It doesn't like me. Okay, select layers. select the map. Okay. So, oh, I'm sorry. I have to select the map. Okay. And what I'm looking for is places and county subdivisions. That's what it was. So notice I took ACS 2019 places and county subdivisions. And I'm going to say, I want to look at, let me see if I can do this, control, census designated places, incorporated places. And I think usually we get county subdivisions up here and we will look at those and I say compare. And it gives me this bar and I can compare. So this is what Monroe County and Wayne County used to look like, okay? So anything in the dark pink are incorporated places like villages or cities, and everything in this light pink are census designated places. That's where the county can come in and draw a statistical line around a place that should have incorporated as a village but never did, right? And that's what we've had from 2010 until 2019. And now some counties have, whoever came in and they drew lines and they've added things. So look over here, if I can move this to the right a little bit in, I think this is, I lost the county name, that's Wayne County. Notice that people have, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So previously, this town looked like that, and now Walworth Town has these new census designated places. So notice that they're right here. And so here, notice nothing was there, but this year, at the end of the year, when ACS data is released and the 2020, and right now the 2020 data, under places, you can go in and you can get this data now. Okay, and then I also wanted to point out, here's what Ontario, is it Ontario? Yeah, Ontario used to look like this. Let me zoom in a little bit, right? That's what they had for the boundaries of Ontario CDP, but notice now it is larger a little bit. Right here in this corner, it has been increased. So this is entire web. You're welcome to go into it. You can come over here to the left. You know, you can look at Census 2020 and you can see, you know, how data is going to be released. I'm going to tell you something amusingly. Somehow colleges now were allowed to identify themselves as places. So Nazareth College, St. John Fisher, that we never had that before. I don't know how that data is going to be released, but for the town of Pittsford, maybe it's an advantage to them. Maybe they can figure out what's not part of the whole a little bit easier just by looking at that data. But this is just really, I'm just letting people see what things look like beforehand and what they're going to look like now. If you wanted to go in and look at census blocks and census tracts, you can calibrate this as well on the left to do that. So that would be over here on the left. Here it is, census tracts and blocks. I'll just turn it on. I didn't turn it on over here on the right. Oh, it came on anyway. So, but you can certainly go in and you can look at things. CT, census tract, block groups are there. And then over here on the left, you can turn things on and off. So that's a way for you visually to look at things to see what has changed for you. I don't have it today. I think we do have like a list comparing old tracts and blocks to new ones. But visually you can do this. I always, you know, my background's geography, so I like to do it visually, believe it or not, and not so much from a list. But this is a way you can do this as well if you want to. So I'm actually going to just turn my video back on and see if we have any questions.
David, you might stop sharing your screen too, so you can.
Yeah, I'll do that if I can. Yeah. Is that good?
Yep, and I do not see any additional questions. If anybody has any, you can post it in the chat.
Yeah, I'm going to go while people were reading that. I just let people know that my job is actually under normal circumstances. I do travel around New York State and not Long Island, and I give presentations or I give workshops. Sometimes we do this as a workshop, and we're there live. They're right in front of you and help you. We don't know where that stands right now until the end of this year. But after that, maybe some things will be back to normal. I don't really know. But right now, everything's virtual. It is a free service from the Census Bureau. We like to help people with data. And so that is generally what I do. And so just so everybody knows, if you have your own group and you need that. And we also, if you ever have a conference and you have people who set up tables to be there to answer questions, we do that as well.
And for any of you educators out there and you need a guest lecturer, come in and give a little demonstration.
Yeah, I do that too. Actually, when we come live, we bring all sorts of like things we about, like stickers and I don't know, water bottles and things like that. So.
Okay, got one question. What percentage of the questions on the ACS are answered? What are the typical range of answered simply?
I don't know. So there are a couple of things about the ACS. I will tell you, I didn't say that before. We don't really care about your name. I'm sorry to tell, everybody has a little egotistical in them, but Census Bureau for the ACS, not the decennial, if you want to say I'm person one and she's person two or something like that, we'll take it. I think we want most of it, probably we want it filled up. But sometimes certain percentage, I don't know what, maybe people don't fill up 10 questions. We're going to take most of it anyway, but it does water down the data. It does make the margin of error go up high. So we do want most of it answered, but some things we will let people slide. If somebody fills it up online and they don't fill up quite a lot of questions, we're probably going to send somebody to their house and try to get them to answer all the questions. So I know I said this before. I said, at the block group level, your margin of error would be higher, but a few weeks ago I had a town in Vermont and their whole town was only one block group. And when we got into that block group, the margin of error was pretty low. And so what that indicates is that everybody who got the ACS in that town in Vermont, they just participated. And so it helps with their data. So anyway, that's just a little background information there.
Okay. Is there a chat function on census.gov for help finding data on the site?
I don't think there is one. I don't think there's a chat. I mean, maybe you mean a bot, where you go in and you ask somebody to come. I don't think there is one actually, unless there's one there and I never noticed before. But that's a really good, I think I'm going to take that comment back to people who they're always developing this. They're adding to it every few months. They change. By the way, I would say, if you have a big, robust thing you're going to do and data it on census.gov, do not do it on a Friday morning. I have learned my lesson. So they seem to be doing upgrades to it on Fridays, at least Friday morning. So I kind of steer clear of it on Fridays.
Okay. Other than a lot of excellent presentations, thank you. I don't see any questions. So.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for presenting.
It is recorded, so you're good. Yeah. Okay, I will just turn off I'm going to turn off my, stop the video.
Okay.
Still here.
So thank you again for presenting for us. A couple, just some general GISSIG housekeeping. The conference was hoping to be back in April. So check your emails for that. Also, because this is GIS Awareness Week and GIS Day, we registered it event with Esri, and they were graciously donated 5 personal licenses for ArcGIS. So 5 people in attendance will be getting an email with a free license code. So hope, look for that. And also, like I said, the recording will be on the GISSIG website later today. So thank you.
So happy GIS Day tomorrow for everybody.
All right, yeah. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Okay.